The Supreme Court is due to rule on the case of a woman from Northern Ireland who wasn't allowed to benefit from her partner's local government pension after he died. The case is being watched keenly to see if pension providers across the public sector are paying enough attention to the rights of the increasing number of cohabiting couples. More details from our personal finance correspondent, Simon Gompertz.
Ms Brewster, a Coleraine lifeguard, had been with her partner Lenny for 10 years before he died suddenly 2 days after they'd got engaged. If they'd been married, she would have shared automatically the pension he was building up from working for the Northern Ireland public transport service, Translink. But since they were cohabitees, he needed to have nominated her in a form, which he hadn't done. Denise has taken her case all the way to the Supreme Court in London, arguing that the requirement is unreasonable and denies her human rights. The ruling could have implications for pension schemes across the public sector, for nurses, teachers, civil servants and police. They have millions of members and similar requirements for couples who aren't married or in a civil partnership.
Millions of unmarried couples across the UK could be affected by a Supreme Court ruling today on the case of a woman who was denied access to the pension of her long-term partner after his death. Lenny McMullen died suddenly in 2009, 2 days after getting engaged to Ms Brewster. I've been speaking to her, and she told me first about their circumstances when he died.
We were together for 15 years. We lived together for 10. We owned our own property together, and we were planning on getting married and having children. Then finally we thought, right, we're ready to get married. We're now in a position. And we got engaged on Christmas Eve 2009. And Lenny died then suddenly on Christmas night. So the carpet was pulled from under my feet. Before Lenny died, about a month before he died, we had a conversation. We came in, he was making dinner. Lenny says, well, if I died, and we started, he says, you're entitled to this, and he told me, you're entitled to the pension, you're entitled to the death and services, you'll get the house, you'll get the lot.
After he died and you went to his employer to try and get access to his pension, what were you told?
First of all, they told me I was entitled to anything because I wasn't married. I said, well, Lenny had told me that this is what I was entitled to. So then it went to a legal case then.
His employer said that he hadn't filled in the form he should have done. What was the impact on you of being told that, having had these conversations with him where he was reassuring you that you would get his pension should anything happen to him?
Well, this was a major impact. Now, although it was his employer, it was also the local government pension scheme, which I was also a part of that local government pension scheme. When I was told that I wasn't entitled, I went through my solicitor to try to get them the local government pension scheme to reevaluate, because they did say that I was entitled to a death of services money, which was a lump sum payout. But they said because Lenny hadn't written out a signed document that I wasn't entitled to this pension.
So
now,
is it for you about your circumstances and financial hardship, or is it about the principle of people who are not married but have been cohabiting for a long time to have these rights?
Well, it's a bit of both. Yes, I set things into place, but this last thing that I had to do was about us, and this was about our love and what we were to each other. And although that I'd started off about myself and Lenny, later on, as I opened up the pages and discovered more about it, this was not just about me. This was about thousands of other families who people had children, and they were bearing the blunt of these hardships. That both of these people, like myself and Lenny, both paid into that pension scheme. We paid into that scheme for years, and neither I nor anybody belonging to Lenny's family were going to be able to avail of that pension fund that we had paid into the pot.
Ms Brewster, the lawyer who acted for her, is Gareth Mitchell, a partner at the firm Dayton Pearce Glynn. Good morning. What was the legal basis on which you took this case to the Supreme Court?
Well, what the case is about is discrimination on the grounds of marital status. So the rule that Denise came up against, which is present in most public sector pension schemes, is that whereas with married people, if their partner, their pension scheme member dies, they will receive a survivor's pension for the rest of their life and benefit from the contributions that have been made by their loved one. Whereas if you're a cohabitee, even if you can show that you're in a long-term marriage-like relationship, there's an additional requirement to have completed a signed declaration signed by both parties prior to the death. And the problem, on a practical level, is that people are very bad at completing those forms. So when we looked into the numbers of forms that had been returned by cohabitees for this particular pension scheme, hardly anyone had completed it. It was in the 45 or 50 in a scheme with tens of thousands of members. So people expect to get these entitlements, and then suddenly, when the worst possible thing has happened to them, they get this additional blow, and they're told that for the rest of their life they're not going to receive any benefit from all of those pension contributions.
So if the ruling goes your way, and we'll know what the Supreme Court has decided this morning, will that have an immediate impact on other cohabitees, people in Denise's position?
Well, if the Supreme Court allows the appeal and decides it in Denise's favour, then the most immediate impact will be on those, as I said, there's about 12 million public sector pension scheme members, and lots of those pension scheme members will be cohabitees. 1 in 6 families in the UK now are cohabitee families. 1 in 3 children born in the UK now are born to cohabitee families. So it affects lots of people. So all of those 12 million public sector pension scheme members will have a direct benefit from this. And it'll also have an impact, less direct, I accept, but on there's about 11 million people in the UK who are members of defined benefit pension schemes, which have similar rules.
And for you, the issue is discrimination on the basis of marital status. Does that mean that if the decision goes your way, then that distinction between marriage and cohabitation will be significantly reduced in the eyes of the law? Because that would have implications on other areas as well.
We're not saying in this case that cohabitees should be treated in exactly the same way as married people. But what we are saying is that where you have someone who's in a long-term committed cohabiting relationship...
How long would long-term be? Because you'd have to draw the line somewhere, wouldn't you, to have a test for which cohabitee would have rights akin to someone married?
Well, there are tests already. So in some circumstances, if you can show that you have lived together for 2 years, that you are financially dependent or interdependent on one another, then you will be treated as in a marriage-like relationship. And that's fine to say, well, we're going to extend these benefits available to marriage people to cohabitees as long as they can show that they're in long-term committed relationships. But if you go beyond that and start putting in unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles, or just make it impossible ever for long-term cohabitees to get benefits, whether it's pension benefits or other benefits, then we say that is unfair and doesn't reflect the world we live in.
Gareth Mitchell, thank you very much.